Hey, extension friends, Nate Birt here, NTAE Key Informant. I'm excited to spend a few minutes today talking about the idea of seasonality. And I've always found that whether you're thinking about the climate work you're doing or resilience work you're doing within extension, or you're thinking about your own life and, maybe different periods of time that have been most meaningful or significant to you, everyone can relate to this idea that there are times of craziness, there are times of calm, right? There are times of great progress, leaps and bounds in your own professional development and your own impact. And there are times when maybe you feel like you've plateaued or you're slipping. And so seasonality is a reality. And yet, when we fail to incorporate that into our thinking and strategy, it can blindside us, right? Maybe things have been going really great in the work that you're doing within extension, but then you get a curveball. And now what do you do, right? So the purpose of today's session is really just to ground us in the reality of seasonality and also recognize that, hey, one season often transitions, in fact, inevitably transitions into a new one. So let's use this to sort of prepare our mindset for this issue. And so the first question I want to ask you is, what does a typical year look like for you? So think about your career within extension, and it could be in a very specialized topic. It could be in a variety of areas where you serve clients. But I want you to think first about what are the difficult parts of your year. Now, for some people, it could be, hey, in the spring, we have a really busy cycle of submitting proposals or putting together updates on programs, things like that. I have a client that I serve that sort of tracked their proposal submissions for grants and discovered, hey, the spring is really crazy. Like I wondered why I felt this way. And now I have the data to show me, hey, between the months of, March and May, there's often a lot of RFPs that we're having to respond to. So in your setting, it might be something completely different. But the point is, think about what tends to be hard, right? Maybe it's something in your work life. You have a lot of projects that are happening in parallel. You're trying to juggle lots of different plates in the air. On the other hand, it can be something personal, right? If you're like me, you have kids in school, K through 12. And so summers are great because we have the kids at home. We get to spend more time together. On the other hand, there's then the transition back into the fall school year. And so there's planning for school and coordinating with a spouse or a partner about what do the supplies are needed and making sure they're put in the right seats and all that kind of good stuff. So maybe think about what's hard and what makes those seasons difficult, and jot down some notes just so you have sort of a record for yourself, so that when times get hard and you enter a new season, chances are pretty good you've probably been in a season like that. And if not, then we can talk about some other skill sets. But that's one step, is just write this down. What are the hard parts, the difficult parts to navigate, and just know those so you can anticipate them if that season occurs in the future. Then think about the easier parts, right? Maybe winter seasons when you have more downtime that gives you strategic thinking time. You have more creativity, you're able to travel. Maybe you're able to take time off and spend with your family or friends or do something fun or go on a vacation. So think about that too. And again, reflect on this concept of, does this occur again and again? Is this a pattern, or is it something that's maybe there are easier seasons of life based on the expertise you've gained over the past year or the experience you have leading an initiative of some kind. So think about that and reflect on, are these things recurring again and again? Is it a one-time thing? Am I hitting a new milestone in my career, in my life? And I think just thinking about these things allows us to be more nimble in our planning and the implementation of the work that we're doing. And then finally, I encourage my clients, and indeed myself, to really think in sprints, right? Within any season, there is often a period of time where you really have to go fast and really nose to the grindstone on a specific issue or project. And so think about, in your own career and life, are there times in which a sprint, really just focusing all in on one specific thing, has really served you well? Or it could, if you had the ability to wave a magic wand and repurpose things in your calendar to allow you to do sprints. Because the reality is, seasons can change abruptly. They can also change predictably. And so the point here I'm encouraging you is simply to capture some data in your own unique circumstances, your own lived experiences, and use this as something you can reference periodically, maybe once a month, once a quarter, and just reflect on, how are the seasons changing? Are you stuck in a season? Do you need to transition into a new one? And hopefully that can help you in your decision making and in your execution. The second question I've got on here is, how can you adapt your expectations and your working style to anticipate and survive? So again, sometimes seasons change abruptly, right? We lose a loved one, or a new project is dropped in our laps, or we get a big award we weren't expecting, or maybe we hoped for but we were unsure. And so in those cases, there's a certain element of unpredictability. On the other hand, we lose people throughout life, right? Which is tragic and also true. We get new projects, old projects go, new ones arrive. That is not entirely predictable, but it is a reality of life that our careers have, ebbs and flows in work and new opportunities and that kind of thing. So think about ways that you can condition your daily rituals, your calendar, just your life in general to have enough buffer, so to speak, or oxygen, so that you can adapt and be flexible as seasons change, especially in cases where, things are quote unquote unpredictable, and yet you can sort of look ahead and anticipate, hey, my career may change. It may take a detour. My season of life, whether it's parenting or caretaking for an elderly loved one or whatever the case might be, is likely going to shift as time goes on. And so just being able to anticipate that kind of seasonality will help you have the right mindset, the right attitude, and the framework to tackle whatever comes your way. The other thing to think about with seasonality is this idea of communication. So certainly you need to know, as the person living your life, what's happening in terms of the seasons that you're in your career and your personal life. And it's also true, it often helps to bring that reality to the attention of those you care most about, those who are supporting you. It starts with your loved ones, your family, and it extends to friends, to coworkers, to supervisors, to team members who may report to you, to external partners. Again, you have to use your discretion, but the point is, especially in dramatic seasons of life, or in seasons that are very busy, right? You're completing a project, you're getting a big report together, you're launching a new initiative. It's important to be able to be vulnerable and communicate about those things so you can define new boundaries, right? I know we used to get together every Thursday for this meeting or this, coffee break. It's no longer feasible for the next 3 months. And I still care about you. I want to maintain the relationship. So I have these other ideas. We could send a note, or I could drop you a letter every now and then, or we could text each other. Think about ways to preserve relationships while also communicating clear boundaries so seasons don't overwhelm you. And then finally, think about what success will look like at the end of that season, right? The beautiful thing about seasons is that one inevitably turns into a new one, right? You get to close the book and open a new chapter. And so the more that you can encourage yourself and those around you that each day in this season you're moving toward a conclusion of some kind, that's going to give you closure, that's going to give you clarity. And again, some seasons aren't like that necessarily, right? Some seasons may last for years. Caretaking for a loved one, parenting, leading a big initiative, being an executive or a supervisor. These things take an enormous chunk of time, investment, energy, etc. And so it's important to give yourself a sense of, where are we going? I'm making progress. I'm moving in the right direction. And if you're not, maybe it's time to reevaluate and go back and look at those seasons of life, the predictable ones, maybe the unpredictable ones that have been thrown your way, and figure out, is it time for a change in seasons that is within my control? So my question for you, or my encouragement, is to answer this question: what season are you in right now? And what's one way you can make the most of it? I think anytime we are faced with the ebbs and flows of life, it's a really great time to step back, get clarity on where I'm at, what season I'm in, and how can I make the most of it, right? I may not be able to escape right away. I might want to, but I might not be able to. On the other hand, maybe you are in a position to change seasons, to have greater control than you might have been in the past. And so think about how you can make the most of it. Maybe it's changing the season. Maybe it's adapting to the season. Maybe it's communicating more clearly about boundaries you need to set to be effective in this season of life and work. Whatever the case, I hope you'll send me a note to natebirt@extension.org. Would love to hear what season you're in and how you're making the most of it. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you on the next video. See ya. Bye-bye.